Memories in the Mirror by Helen Davison of Balgownie. 2519. Narrated by Janine Penfold. Dorothy took the dress to the change room. The pink and ice blue floral silk draped over her arm, flowing in the motion of her walk as she rushed to get there ahead of other customers. It was far too big on her slender frame, as she had suspected it would be. But she couldn't be certain until she tried it on, because the label displaying the dress size had been snipped off by the previous owner. That's one of the downsides to op shopping. The material was soft and glamorous and reminded Dorothy that her mother had once owned a similar dress, one that she had eventually discarded to become Dorothy's favourite dress-up. She looked in the mirror as her hand smoothed the fabric, and the image of the woman looking back merged with the girl from 60 years ago, when it was safe to dress in mother's clothes and walk to the local grocery store. 9-year-old Dottie added her mother's mauve hat with the flock and bead flowers to her ensemble. When she pulled the veil over her eyes, she felt she looked mysterious, like the black and white Hollywood stars that Dottie saw on the midday movie on the television, when she was allowed to watch it during the school holidays. She sat at her mother's dressing table to select some beads and to apply some lipstick. Paint, smudge, paint again, as she had watched her mother do 1,000 times. She then slipped her tiny feet into a pair of high-heel shoes from the bottom of the wardrobe, pulled on some gloves, borrowed a handbag, and clomped down the hallway and through the front door, calling a "goodbye" that she knew her mother would not hear. There was only one street to cross to get to Mr. Bowes' shop. It was a narrow one, and Dottie always made sure to look left, then right, and left again. She walked through the swinging door and climbed onto the stool placed at the counter so that Mr. Bowes could see her. Dottie wondered if Mr. Bowes had put the stool there specifically for her. This is where she sat most afternoons after school, a detour on her way home. If Mr. Bowes wasn't too busy filling orders for customers, because this was the time before supermarkets, he and Dottie would solve the problems of the world together. Sometimes he would sit on his side of the counter, and sometimes he would conduct a debate while busily filling and weighing paper bags of goods, selecting packages from the shelves, making ticks against lists, and writing the items in the credit book. "Good morning, madam," Mr. Bowes said, peering over the top of his glasses. "How can I help you today?" "Oh, I don't need anything today, thank you, Mr. Bowes. I just came for a chat." And so they would talk. They talked about the new women's liberation movement and the end of trams in Sydney and the beginning of the Sydney Opera House. They didn't talk about the bomb. Dottie was scared of the bomb. She would dream about her street being bombed and saw herself walking through a dystopia of blackened debris and bodies. But she never told Mr. Bowes about this. There was a war brewing. Dottie had heard her father talking about the yellow peril and the domino principle. But it made little sense to Dottie, so she didn't talk to Mr. Bowes about this either. War and nuclear bombs were the subject of nightmares and not topics Dottie wanted to discuss. Or was this later? Time distorts history. Sometimes Mother would send Dottie to the shop to buy something she had forgotten to put on her weekly list. Mr. Bowes would get the item and then write it in his book on the page marked for her mother. On Friday, he would give Mother the bill and she would pay the total. Sometimes Dottie would pretend that she had been sent to the shop to buy chocolate biscuits. She would watch Mr. Bowes as he found the right page, licked his pencil, and wrote them down, keeping her fingers crossed that he wrote biscuits and omitted the chocolate. Mother sometimes bought biscuits in case visitors came, but never the chocolate variety. If Mr. Bowes wrote chocolate biscuits, Dotty would have no choice but to hand them over to her mother and get into trouble for buying them, which was preferable to getting into trouble for acquiring them by deception for her private consumption. When Dotty had money, usually a sixpence from Grandma, she would spend it at Mr. Bowes' lolly counter. She could get 6 different sweets, a penn'orth of this and a penn'orth of that, and Mr. Bowes would always put an extra lolly in the bag for nothing. When Mr. Bowes was busy, he allowed Dotty to serve herself. She was always honest about the amount she put in the bag. She would never abuse Mr. Bowes' trust in her, but she preferred being served by Mr. Bowes for the extra he gave her. That was his prerogative, not hers, but time distorts memories. Are you nearly finished in there, madam? Oh, yes, sorry, I won't be long. Dorothy slipped off the dress, back into her own clothes, and through the curtain of the dressing room. Sorry, it didn't fit, she explained, handing over the garment with a sad smile. As she left the shop, Dorothy's phone rang. Hello, Mum. Do you want to do coffee? Her daughter said. Great idea. I'll meet you at Rosie's Cafe in 15. I have to go to the supermarket for a bit, just to buy a bag of Sherbies and some clinkers and maybe some of those little ice cream cones with the marshmallow on top and the sherbet inside. Really? Are the grandchildren coming for a visit? No, actually. Dorothy giggled. I just had a craving. What? For lollies? No. To keep a memory alive. The end.